Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the T.H.O. Movie Reviews podcast, the show where we bring you passionate, honest, and insightful film criticism. I'm your host, Bennett Campbell Ferguson, and I'm here today to talk Black Panther with a couple of my wonderful colleagues, starting with Mo Shaunette, who's been just educating us about bee and puppy cats.
This is not relevant to our conversation.
Man, you
could say that life is not relevant to our conversation.
Then why are we here?
I don't know. This is obviously getting existential.
This is going a weird place.
But then superhero, the whole genre is existential in its own way. So.
Sure. Let's go with that.
And also here we have Maxwell Meyers, and he just only now tells me we have to be done before 5 because he has a hair appointment. Max, where are your priorities?
I gotta get my hair did.
It is currently 2:15.
Oh my goodness. So here you go. Here you go, gang.
Let the race begin.
Speaking of existential, I've totally been watching this new show on YouTube, which probably could have told you this before we started, but it's called Hot Ones. It's they get celebrities to eat hot wings. They eat, and this guy hosts. They have 10 hot wings they have to eat, and they eat one, and they increase in spiciness over time. And Neil deGrasse Tyson was on there, and it was so great. He was the last question. I was always really crazy, and the host asked these really obscure questions, but Neil deGrasse Tyson just goes super existential and says that what we're made of is what the universe is made of, and so we're not special. But by the fact that we're all the same is what makes us special. It's so weird.
That was like the Grant Morrison theorem. Was like he talked about like his experience with spirituality, and like there was this temple in like Nepal or Tibet somewhere where he after he made his first batch of money off of The Invisibles or whatever comic he wrote. It was like a temple where if you were able to climb up these 200 steps in a single breath, then you would achieve enlightenment. And apparently he did that, and then later had a vision where it was like the universe began as a single atom, and then it subdivided, and then those atoms subdivided, and it continued on until we got to where we are. Everything is connected, everything is related to each other.
See, that's what happens when you deprive your brain of oxygen.
How did we end up here?
I don't know.
This
relates
we
to
have
Black
gone
Panther.
on some fascinating detours in the history of this podcast. But this is truly epic.
It's been 3 minutes and we are already off the rails.
Oh my gosh, we started with we're here to talk about Black Panther, and here we are talking about hot wings in the universe.
I think this is a good moment to steer our ship back toward Wakanda.
Yeah, we'll fix this in post. Don't worry.
Let's just start as always with the most basic question. Starting with you, Mo. I know this from your review, but for our listeners who haven't read your review, what did you think of the film?
I really liked it. There was going into Black Panther. There's a lot of expectation, as you can expect, because it is. We haven't seen a movie like this before. We have seen stories that are. We have seen superhero stories that star black people, that center around black people. You know, everyone likes to bring up, oh, you're forgetting about stuff like Blade or Meteor Man or whatever. We haven't seen a superhero story of this scale from the preeminent blockbuster factory in the world right now.
Well, and also, I don't know about Meteor Man, but Blade, that's not specifically an African
It
story.
Isn't. That's the other thing. This is, even though Wakanda is a fictitious country, it very much feels like this amalgamation of all African countries, and at the same time, this idealized version of any country. So it is. We'll loop back to this later, I'm certain, but it is interesting that there were all these expectations, and it not only. To my mind, the movie not only met these expectations, but it was just a good movie on its own. It's well written, interesting characters, it's funny, it's really well shot, it's extremely well put together. It's a great movie, and I am so overjoyed that it exists and that it's breaking records left and right.
Max?
I hated it. No, I loved it. It was so good. It was. I think it was just so nice because there was so much expectation, but it seems that Marvel and Disney, if they've had any hand in it, who knows, It seems like they took a lot of care into it, and
Ryan Coogler as well as the director.
Yes, I mean everyone involved. It seems like there was a lot of thought put into it. It wasn't just acting or the directing, but the screenplay, the costume design, the art direction, the music direction. It was nice. It felt like people going, "We want to do this right, but we want to trust the right people to do it," and meeting somewhere in the middle, I guess. And yeah, I think it is, Spawn, Blade, Meteor Man, but it's true, this is the first movie we've seen centered around a black superhero that's had this much cash poured into it.
Isn't it also, too, kind of a thing that, like, I mean, this is maybe the first time we've seen a black superhero who is kind of like a really likable, but also sort of mythic figure, like Christopher Reeve and Superman.
Yeah.
He does kind of have a somewhat Superman-type feeling around him, because only one person can have the power.
Sure.
Yeah. Someone pointed this out online. That it's like it's a black superhero who is respected, who is I don't want to say dignified, but like he's vaunted and he's celebrated. Marvel also put out Luke Cage, really great story, but Luke Cage is an ex-con. We've got Blade, who part of the point of Blade is that no one knows he exists. This is something else. Something funny I read on Twitter. It was some conservative talking head posted online saying something along the lines of everyone's celebrating, or it's like Michelle Obama talking about we need more black female superheroes or something, and she points out the Catwoman movie from 2004 as an example, to which one of the writers of Catwoman responded, "That movie's a piece of shit and deserves to be forgotten."
Halle Berry herself said a piece of shit god-awful movie in her Razzie speech.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that movie's so terrible. I came in at the climax of the movie and I still didn't care. Like, I wasn't even interested enough to see the most exciting part of that movie.
Well, I'm with you guys. I loved Black Panther. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. You guys know I rag on Marvel Studios a lot, and but for me, this was a Marvel Studios movie that kind of agnostic about that particular brand of Marvel like me could enjoy, because kind of like Iron Man or like the Winter Soldier, this is just pure great storytelling. I think T'Challa is a really compelling character. I love seeing him both wrestle with the responsibility that his role as a leader brings, and along with going on cool James Bond style action jaunts. I mean, this is an incredibly entertaining movie, and I also think it's the first superhero movie in a while that had a really, really compelling conflict between the hero and the villain. Where you had these not just two characters who were opposed, but two characters who had opposing philosophies, and again, this is another thing we'll get into later. But I love how T'Challa learns something from Eric Stevens that he's going to take into his life later, and that he's shaped by that encounter. But I want to get a little deeper into some stuff here. We, the three of us, reviewed Wonder Woman last year, and we talked, I think, a lot of it about how Wonder Woman, as a woman, she brings a very different perspective to the superhero myth. And that myth that's informed so many of these movies, is reshaped, when it's seen through a different character's eyes than we usually see. And I was thinking about how, as much as I love, the X-Men films, there's a problem when you've got an allegory for intolerance, for bigotry, and it's, two old white dudes who are kind of illustrating that allegory.
That's kind of, like, I maintain that X-Men First Class is the best X-Men movie, or at least it's certainly my favorite. But it's a little messed up that when we get all the mutants together, the black dude dies first, and the Latina woman, or the mixed race woman, goes evil.
Exactly. Which
and then the Jewish guy goes evil.
Yeah! Well, which is why I want to ask you guys, it's just, I think that the fact that this is a story about, an African character in T'Challa, an African American character in Eric Stevens, I think that brings a a fresh perspective and also a richness to the superhero myth and some of these comic books we've seen before. And so I just wanted to hear you guys' thoughts about like what that perspective brings to the genre, essentially.
This is. All right, I'm gonna launch into a thing now.
Go right ahead. That's what this is for.
So prep yourself for that.
That's why we turn on the cell phone each time.
One of my favorite things about this movie is that it gets the idea of Wakanda right. It gets the idea that it's this utopia that was sort of built not only by access to this radical space metal that can do anything, but because it's an African country that was never subject to colonialism, that was never subject to invasion or the slave trade, that it was able to achieve these scientific, sociological feats. Wakanda is essentially a paradise. But you also have to grapple with the uncomfortable part about it, is that if it's hidden away for so long with these technological marvels and just kind of letting the world fall to pieces around it, isn't that a problem? Is, as a wise Uncle Ben once said, with great power, there must also come great responsibility.
I feel like I would remember that line.
And it's
words to live by.
Yeah.
The movie just kind of it leans into that, which is kind of what's brilliant about it. Is it feels very much like it gets the source material, but it also has the capacity to look at it from a critical lens and engage with it. And that, to me, is part of what makes it so great. It's part of what makes Ryan Coogler and Joe Robert Cole's vision so good in this movie.
I think you bring up, what could arguably be the strongest element of the script, which is, that debate about, as you said, if this is a paradise, what's that paradise's responsibility to the rest of the world? And for me, I was enjoying the movie, but the instance, Lupita Nyong'o says, we should be helping people out there, and that, debate started, my interest in the movie, went from, this is really good to, oh yeah, now I'm really hooked, Because that's really powerful stuff to do.
Doesn't that also feel like an audience question?
Sure, of course.
Yeah. Look at the advanced society, aren't they helping anyone? And then someone else was like, yeah, what she said. Yeah, I think, I don't know, I think that is actually, I like that I think what I really like about this is maybe the perspective that I get is that the story itself could have been about anyone, but obviously this could have been about anyone in Africa.
The bare bones plot of it is...
The bare bones plot of there's a utopia, what responsibility they have, you could have done it, but it was used to do this, and I think in that way, it's this is a universal idea, but through this lens you get this great story that really should be told, that has been told in other ways with other characters. I went and saw it with one of my, two of my friends who are African American. Both of them were women, and the one to the right of me who's younger, she's about my age. She goes, I laughed, I cried, I cheered. She goes, I wanted to see a movie like this. And the one to the left of me was 40, and she just leaned over. She just goes, I've always wanted to see a movie like this. That was her one thing, and I was just in that one moment, I was I'm not feeling that, but that's okay. And and I think that's what that vision is. I think it's good that we have someone out there putting out this vision. Or the great memes that have come from it, which is why we need representation. And you have all these young girls dressing as the warrior women.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And that's actually the other thing is I almost criticized the movie because I was everyone is so cool and so wonderful. Even M'Baku is a dick, and then he's still great. And then I was but then again I was you know what? No, that's kind of nice. It's nice to see that but then there are some flaws. Like you said, T'Challa has to deal with that pull of responsibility and morality.
Yeah.
And the general played by Daniel Kaluuya,
Wakabi.
Thank you. I'm not going to remember anyone's names.
I'm going to remember all their names.
That's
because I'm that kind of nerd.
I'm glad you'll be there. I'm just bad with names. But Daniel Kaluuya, I like that his character is kind of, he's like, we should be doing more, but kind of went in the darker route. And I love, my favorite part of that entire movie is just the part where he challenges the woman he loves, and he kneels to her. And I was like, oh my gosh, the theater nearly cheered. It was actually a great moment.
That moment feels kind of radical to me. Like the idea, first of all, that she says, for Wakanda without question. Like I think that's really compelling. And then the idea that he has his own beliefs, but he chooses not to
peace.
Die for him.
Yeah.
That's he for a character who's kind of on the fringes of the movie, I find myself thinking a lot about him.
There was like everybody on the fringes were great characters, and then if you didn't hear anything, you wanted to know more. I think that was one of the best parts as well.
Yeah.
It felt so handled so well taken care of. It felt that way.
One thing I really appreciated too was Eric. And I think it's interesting that he spells Eric the same way as Magneto, because he's this story's Magneto, but I think Michael B. Jordan is pretty outstanding. I think he could be working toward
he was
getting
actually
even better than that.
I think he was probably the best part of that movie.
Yeah, but I think it was really compelling to have him come in there and again talking to this conflict of like what's Wakanda's responsibility to the rest of the world. To have him, speaking on, behalf of, all the other, black people outside of Wakanda, and speak these harsh truths, and even though it was a utopia, I like that there was like an awareness like of really disturbing things. Like I think one of the characters even mentions police brutality. There's a line that like alludes to that, and I just think it's cool that it's a myth, but it's not like an insular myth. It's a myth that like is like kind of showing like how things could be, but it's not just wish fulfillment. It's engaging with the way things are as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
Agreed.
Seconded.
Motion is carried out.
It's a good movie.
This is all very democratic now.
Gavel.
Gavel.
I think the gavel is a great
Thanks.
transition.
Sorry, I thought the safety was on.
No. Let's talk about Ryan Coogler.
Let's talk about Ryan Coogler.
Let's talk about the Cougs.
I think we can all agree he's absolutely wonderful as a filmmaker.
Like he's made 3 movies now, and they all have like 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's I know like using Rotten Tomatoes as a barometer is like iffy territory, but that's impressive, man. That's crazy.
And this is his 3rd movie.
This is his 3rd movie.
This
Black Panther. Wow.
I mean, not that it's a competition, although all directors are in competition, but Christopher Nolan had to make 3 movies where he was ready for Batman Begins, so Coogler's beating Nolan at the same point as career. Not that anyone's keeping score.
I would like to point out that they originally almost had Ava DuVernay. Yeah. So that would have been her what? Her 3rd movie?
Something like that.
Wouldn't it be her 4th?
I don't know. I know.
Middle of Nowhere, Selma, 13th. And
Yeah.
So there you go.
I know that she turned it down because she wanted like complete creative control, and Marvel wasn't going to give her that, and she wound up taking A Wrinkle in Time instead. And she worked in like the editing room, like her editing room was across the hallway from like Ryan Coogler's editing room.
Great.
And they would talk to each other.
That's excellent.
Well, let's get into how Coogler dealt with this movie, because I think his technique is really fascinating, and I mean. For me, this is a really interesting amalgamation of there's a lot of like kind of like classic Marvel things. There's elements of Iron Man. There's elements of Thor and the Avengers. Even maybe a little Captain America-esque political intrigue. But at the same time, there are some stylistic differences, and I wonder if you guys could talk about like what he brought to this story. that was kind of uniquely his. Because I see a lot of things. I feel like the pacing is different. I feel the pacing is a little bit slower, and I feel like the visuals are, I mean, we're not, talking, psychedelic Doctor Strange stuff necessarily. But on the other hand, there are the rituals, like where, the characters, both the hero and the villain have this moment where they kind of, through a vision, reach out to their fathers. Mm-hmm. And so there's a bit of the surreal in there too. So.
I saw it again last night. This is completely detracting, but the thing I noticed, he likes to end his scenes on jokes.
Interesting.
There's the moment where we're having the cue from James Bond scene where Shuri is showing him like all the new technology.
Yes. Yeah.
And the last bit of it is him hitting the suit and it like bouncing back on him and her recording it. That's how it ends. There's the scene near the end. Spoilers. We're gonna go into spoilers.
Oh no!
Yeah.
There's the scene where they bring him to the Mountain Tribe, and he wakes up in the snow, and his last line before they cut is, "Can you get me a blanket?" So that's something I noticed. But he's very good at weaving humor into scenes without detracting them, and he's very good at using visual signifiers in a lot of ways. Like not just like the design of Wakanda as, again, this mesh of like African architecture and like crazy out there sci-fi technology and modern metropolises, like this blend of the old, the modern, and the futuristic. But the first and last shots of the movie where we're in Oakland and they're shooting at a homemade basketball hoop, which is just like a piece of cardboard and a milk carton with the bomb cutouts.
Right.
And then we go to the end. It's the same. It starts at the same shots, but then we have an actual basketball hoop, and the camera goes like around the kids playing around it. It's the same way. So he's good at doing that. He's good at imparting information visually, not just in terms of dialogue.
Yeah.
That's such a great point. And speaking to the humor, like, the humor all just felt so right. There were moments when there were no jokes. When he was like, okay, it's okay to be a little more serious. And there are moments like when he hits the suit where it's like, even though you see it coming, when it comes, it's really damn funny. I mean, it's a nice little bit of punctuation.
One of the moments that I'm gonna loop. One of my favorite moments is when we first meet the rest of the royal family, where we meet Ramonda and Shuri, and they're talking and they're joking and they're like poking fun of each other and they're laughing, and they're doing it all in these African accents, and like as someone I'm from the Western Hemisphere. I grew up with a lot of American television and movies, and I'm sure we all did. And anytime we rarely ever hear anyone talking in any sort of African accent, but when we do, it's always something they're always saying something like really portentous and important, and like they're some sort of spirit guide or whatever. And here, they're joking, and they're laughing, and they're just acting like regular people. And that meant a lot to me, I guess.
It's an interesting point because people, you think like African characters in movies, like, well, I think for a lot of people's minds they think of like, I don't know, Morgan Freeman in Invictus, but probably a lot of people think of like
or the Lion King,
or like the terrorists in Captain Phillips, and these really kind of like horribly like flattering, portrayals
or
that are
just
really frustrating to see.
Or just very severe situations. Like, I feel like it's like, oh, they've now been captured and they are now slaves in America. Or, oh crap, blood diamonds. Oh crap, political coup. Oh no, Hotel Rwanda. Like, there's no oh, let's just have a regular day, like, fun romantic comedy that takes place in Africa. It's always, oh no, child soldiers. It's nothing ever seems to happen. Not a lot of good things happen in African movies produced through America. There's always something
Yeah.
terrible happening. Not that there's not good people in them.
Which is why the kind of utopianism of Wakanda means
It
more.
means a lot. It's so lovely to see everybody so happy and getting along, except for the people who have to live in the mountains, which is understandable.
It's
I get.
alright.
I mean, they're
okay,
fine
yeah.
enough, but I get a little cranky too if I did live up on a mountain. It seems really cold.
Well, that was interesting because it's like I liked that Wakanda is not like this kind of place where like everybody believes the same thing. You know, you have like different factions. You know, just as like Daniel Kaluuya has different beliefs than T'Challa. You
just
know,
a little bit. You know.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I love I really like how Ryan Coogler really does set up the this and that, both sides. Like I really love going into T'Challa's, you know, seeing his father, and it's like this African plane and all the Black Panthers, and then when Michael B. Jordan goes under, it's the apartment.
But they have the lighting.
But the light, exactly. That's the thing.
That's interesting.
But that's the thing
remember
there's
that.
always some connection back to the other place, and I think that's what he does a really good job. And again, bringing up like even when it's the same apartment complex, it's mirrored in its own way.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to show that connection's always there, even when these people are far apart, which is also, I think, amplifies the seclusion of Wakanda as well.
Sure.
Like everything relates back to Wakanda, yet Wakanda is so removed from the world, which makes the decision at the end to share their technology. Spoiler.
What?
No! But share their technology with the world is like it's finally like allowing that touch out.
Yeah.
And so
absolutely.
but I think Ryan Coogler does a really good job. Like I don't see a lot of Marvel movies really showing like the mirrored pieces.
Sure.
And the connecting to the different points. And
Also, something I've read is that Michael B. Jordan is really into anime, so
Yeah.
they kind of
Really?
added that to Killmonger's character. So like his armor kind of looks like the armor that they wear in Dragon Ball Z.
That's cool.
And the bit where the other Dragon Ball Z bit, like the bit where they're falling through the mine and fighting each other in midair. Like that's straight out of Dragon Ball Z. That's midair kung fu. They do that all the time.
Well, and I know that, I guess Michael B. Jordan spent 9 months growing his hair out, so he lived in the character of Killmonger for 9 months, which he was like, just loner, very aggressive to people, like, try being Eric Killmonger for 9 months. Did a great job. And he also got the best line in the movie.
The sun will never set on the Wakandan Empire?
No, the one about his ancestors.
Yeah, for me that's the second best line in the movie. Like,
Wow.
let's get to that later when we talk about like the warring philosophies, but that's like the best line in the movie for me.
I definitely want to get into that because that's where there's so much to wrestle with in there. I love Ryan Coogler, and I still haven't seen Creed, to my embarrassment.
It's on Hulu, I think.
Okay,
Oh.
I did see Fruitvale Station.
I haven't seen Fruitvale Station yet, but I probably should. But I know it's gonna make me sad. So.
It's tough, but
I know. Well, it's like sadly, like I mean, this is usually where you could go. Well, it's been a few years. Maybe it's a little less accurate, but now you're like, oh man, it's actually somehow worse than it once was. Like, God damn it!
But
and
the really
I'm gonna bring up this line again. It's when people started carrying around cameras regularly. People seeing Bigfoot went way down, but people seeing police brutality went way up.
But the great thing about Fruitvale Station was like I thought that Ryan Coogler was just he just showed himself to be such a smart storyteller, you know, just kind of showing this guy in the last day of his life, you know, going through it bit by bit. You know, there's a real attention to emotion, to motivation, to personality, you know, all the things that typically get lost in most big summer blockbusters. You know, what a shocker, you know, he was able to bring them in there, you know.
It's not even summer.
It's not even summer.
Well, it's not summer. He doesn't have to. He has to
Totally kidding. The Lego Movie came in February too. February summer now.
Oh crap!
But I just think, you know, this movie is a great example of, you know, what he can do is, you know, just someone who tells really good, solid, dramatic stories. And I'm glad that you brought up the the beginning and end at the basketball court, because I was just listening to.
It's not even a basketball court; it's a parking lot.
That is true. That is true. Well, there was a great interview Ryan Coogler gave on the Empire magazine podcast where he was talking about he likes some movies that begin and end the same way. He said his favorite film of all time is the movie A Prophet, which does that, and he was talking about that using that kind of mirroring in Black Panther, and I thought that's like such a testament to just like kind of the poetry of his storytelling, that he brings everything full circle, and not just like in a way like oh, they mirror each other, cool, but in an emotional way, because I love the idea of starting out with young Eric at the beginning, and then the idea of T'Challa talking to this other young boy, and maybe this boy is going to have a better chance than Eric did because of T'Challa.
Yeah.
And he's played by Alex Hibbert.
That was Alex Hibbert?
That was Alex Hibbert.
That's
that
so
was the
cool.
kid from Moonlight.
Oh,
that is awesome. I love that even more now. That is so cool.
Already getting more work. Good.
He's on The Shy now.
That's right. That's right.
I don't know what that is.
It's a Showtime drama. It's created by Lena Waithe, she was on Master of None.
Wow.
And it's just like it's a drama set around the South Side of Chicago.
I had a feeling based on the name, but I was like,
It's
so hard. It's hard for me to keep on what's new on TV without commercials.
It's really good.
I pay money to not know what's coming.
I will offer one criticism of Coogler, and I say this, as someone, I'm willing to give him a pass on this because just his work was so extraordinary. But I do think it's worth pointing out. There's a real. Well, let me back up. I mean, like going again back to Fruitvale Station, like that movie is so clean and so clear. You always understand what's going on. It's so smoothly done. And I was a little disappointed in Black Panther to see him like sort of fall into the traps that a lot of blockbusters do in terms of action, where everything is very frenetic and chaotic. And I have to admit, while I enjoyed some of the action, there were other times where I really I couldn't quite follow what was going on. The editing was a little jumbled. And I think like, and it's easy to kind of like get lost in like, oh, that's just sort of how things are now. But you think about like Fury Road, and that's very frenetic with even more going on in some ways. But it's so like smoothly choreographed, and you always get a sense of like, like how one, action affects another, how, a character leaps from this car and lands on this car, and, I was missing a little bit of it here. And again, it didn't take me out of the movie because, the storytelling in emotional terms was so good, but in terms of just like pure like fight choreography and editing, it could have like
strict movie criticism.
There were some wrinkles I think that could have been smoothed out.
I think if that's going to be your nitpicking remark, I think we're okay. I mean, this could be really described as his first real, like, big budget action sequences.
I don't know how much Creed costs.
I know that in Creed that he actually
Michael
B. Jordan actually got punched twice. I'm not saying that there's not action, but I think it's different. Like boxing
it's different.
matches,
You're not dealing with like CGI and spaceships.
It's a boxing ring. Which, by the way, I've been to a boxing match. Trust me, you sometimes like I wish you could see it from all angles. So shooting that is a whole different thing. But also,
I'm just
it's not like
remembering
Lord of the Rings.
like one of the most memorable parts in Creed is that his first professional fight is shot entirely in one take.
Really?
And it's
really?
like it lasts like 2 minutes, but I don't know how long. I didn't time it, but it's just he steps into the ring. There's the bell. They fight. There's the bell again. He steps back, takes a breather. There's the bell. They fight again. It's all one take, and it's all like shaky cam and handheld. So it very much you do feel like you're part of the action. But that's interesting. And then like comparing it to, I'm thinking about the duel between T'Challa and Killmonger.
Yeah.
Where they did cut around a lot. They got a lot of coverage.
Yeah.
And switching angles. And they did that trick that the Russo brothers like to do, where they lower the frame rate so it looks more intense.
Oh yeah. Well, George Miller did that as well.
Yeah. Bring up Fury Road. I love to bring this up because of it's just a testament to how brilliant that movie is. Is that when they shot it, they made sure that all the action took place in the middle of the frame, like as opposed to like going to the left or going to the right and doing shot reverse shots. Because when they went into the editing room, they wanted you to make sure you were always looking at the points where the action is, and that's like not conventional, but it works. As far as Black Panther goes, it's a little chaotic, I'll admit, but there is that real emotional connection to it. These are real characters. It's not just it's not a John Wick movie where he's just carving through nameless bad guys left and right.
But still so cool to see.
And when they do something like that, it's just straight. It's again we do get the fight at the casino. There's a lot of that is at least edited to look like one shot. There's some definite CGI going on, but when we were on the second floor with Okoye and all the mercenaries, and then we go down to the casino, and then we have T'Challa following Claw up to the second floor. Like that was all. It's designed to look like one shot.
Yeah.
So it's hit or miss, but it lands enough that it doesn't distract from how good the movie is.
I agree, yeah, and I think, I mean, honestly, as much as I love action, and man, do I love action, I once said to my, someone asked me if I wanted to go see The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and I said, sure, and someone said, really? And I said, yeah, I'll see anything where shit blows up. But to be honest, like, I would rather have a great story and not the best action than the other way around, because even when, like, the action was, a little chaotic, and by the way, you're right, that one, or illusion of one take in the casino, that was pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
Like, I was still, like, emotionally hooked in because of the performances, because they carry you through the rough patches, and, and again, it's his third movie, every director, goes through a learning curve. And
they gotta learn all the stuff, all the new stuff that they've never had to do before.
Yeah, and to do this well on this big a stage, with this kind of budget, like.
Yeah. But he surrounded himself with the best people.
Yeah.
Like Rachel Morrison as DP, Ruthie Carter as costume designer. These are really incredible artisans, and if Ruthie Carter doesn't get an Oscar nomination next year, I'm going to be very upset.
We need to keep talking about Black Panther until Oscar season, because, if
Get Outs can make it to Oscars, I think that Black Panther can too.
Another February movie.
Well, yeah, but then it has to fight with the fact that it is a comic book movie. Which, I would really like for them to look past. Just, at the very least, artistically and technically, it should be remembered.
Yeah.
I hope so. Oh, sorry.
I will say one more thing about the action issue.
Yes.
I feel that, I don't know where the problem comes from. I don't know if it's like kind of, in terms of the chaoticness, it's sort of a leftover thing from the rise of MTV. I don't know if studios think that's what we want, or directors think that's what we want, or just, it's hard to wrangle so many elements together. But I do think, I think that's really interesting, and I hadn't noticed that before, what you said, Mo, about in Fury Road, like kind of, having the action be in the center of the frame, and, these are like kinds of things that go back so far, going back to Fred Astaire, making sure that, that when he was dancing, the camera saw his whole body, wow. And just clarity and, coherence and, even going back to Hitchcock and, doing these insanely long takes where you could always, like the crop dusting scene in North by Northwest, like, you always know where Cary Grant is, like, in relation to the plane, in relation to the crops, like, you never have any doubt about the geography, Catherine Bigelow now does that really well as well, and so I would say, like maybe, like, you always want to be pushing movies forward, because, if it doesn't evolve as an art form, it dies. But I think that, like, like maybe there needs to, for these kind of big movies, to be looking back at just like kind of basic visual storytelling, and that's why we have sequels, guys. I mean.
And funnily enough, I'm actually thinking of another Chadwick Boseman movie, Get On Up.
I didn't see that. Was that good?
It's all right. He gives a great performance. There's a few other technical
He's like
issues.
the go-to guy for black biopics now, isn't he?
Yeah, 42.
42. Did he? What was? No, that was someone else. The Jesse Owens movie. I think that was someone else.
Wait,
was he in Marshall as well?
Yes,
he was in Marshall.
Wow.
But in Get On Up, he has this line where he tells him to do something in a different time signature, and he goes, that doesn't work. He goes, why? He goes, because that's not how music works. He goes, does it sound good? He goes, yeah. He goes, then it works. And he goes, and sometimes I think that's just how it is. It's like,
I like that.
Sure, maybe it's not conventional, but if it works, it works. Who cares? Like, don't question it. And then that's how you start making new rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. If the art form doesn't change, it dies.
Let's we kind of alluded to this earlier, and now it's time to dig in.
Oh no! Blah blah blah! I got a shovel.
It is the shovel that is your critical acumen, gentlemen.
Oh no! I brought a real shovel. Dang it! I left my acumen.
I was wondering what you were doing with that.
I left my acumen shovel at home.
Damn
Gosh
it!
darn it!
Didn't you see the email saying bring your? Never
I told
mind.
you I didn't read
It's
the
a whole
questions.
thing. It's a
Well,
whole
we'll
thing.
work without it. We'll
Okay,
improvise.
T'Challa and Eric, quote unquote, Killmonger Stevens. This is another great. I don't even like saying superhero supervillain battle because it's really just two like opposing ideologies. The kind of utopianism and isolationism that T'Challa adheres to, at least at the start of the film, versus Killmonger's attitude, which is let's do something. There is injustice in the world. Let's right it by any means necessary. I mean, I think part of the reason the movie works so well is because it has that conflict, that very rich conflict at the core of it, and I wanted to hear from you guys like how you feel about how the movie plays that out, because I think it's really interesting because Black Panther doesn't condemn Killmonger as much as you expect it to. Like, I mean, it validates a lot of what he says, and T'Challa even, I mean, is going to take a lot of what he says with him, and that informs who he's becoming. We got the email from you that had questions in it, and the thing you brought up was sort of T'Challa's idealism versus Killmonger's cynicism, and to me that felt a little inadequate as an explanation. It's more like T'Challa's mercy versus Killmonger's vengeance. Okay.
That was the key difference, is that part of the reason why T'Challa is an unconventional hero is because he shows this mercy to his enemies. We see it in his fight with M'Baku, where he could kill this guy. He's in a position, but he's like, don't make me do this. Your people need you. And that's what makes him surrender. There's that final moment with Killmonger where he offers to save him, basically, after he's hurt him so bad. Killmonger, for all his for all these ideas he puts out about wanting to liberate black people, it's very blatantly just revenge, because he only cares about he acts like he wants a home in Wakanda, but he only cares about it insofar as it can help him. He participates in the duel for to take the throne, but then he burns the herb garden so that there can't be any other Black Panthers. He doesn't care for tradition. He just wants something that can help him hurt other people as much as they hurt him. And that's the key difference. Is it's mercy versus vengeance, and that it makes for one of the better villains, because they do explore with him, and this is something else that that sort of Marvel is able to do, because they have this continuity across their movies. You know, a lot of Marvel movies, a lot of their shortcomings is the villains, and that's because the heroes more often than not are kind of their own worst enemy. You know, it's Tony Stark's egotism, it's Thor's brashness, it's
Cap's morality.
And
well, and then often too you have villains where it's like they don't have a sympathetic side. You know, they don't.
They're just there to be bad.
They're just kind of the standard, like, you know, mustache twirling thing. Like you know, like I liked Robert Redford in The Winter Soldier. I thought he was great, but it's like, who could possibly sympathize with that guy? It's not a hard choice, you know. I mean,
It's or I love Christopher Eccleston. Great idea for a bad guy, but he just does
he's
nothing.
just there.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just there. He's just there to be the bad guy.
Yeah, but then like T'Challa is kind of the same way because, you know, there's that line, it's hard for a good man to be king. And it's hard for him to rule and be merciful towards his enemies. That's there, but we don't need to spend a lot of time explaining who he is because we already met him in Civil War. We know the basics of him. And so we can devote time to developing Killmonger, not only, again, through Ryan Coogler knowing how to do visual storytelling and knowing how to weave character and characterization into dialogue, but also just spending screen time with this guy and learning about his backstory and learning about what made him who he is. And getting back to what I said earlier, because I just want to hammer in, this is the best line in the movie, the sun will never set on the Wakandan Empire. He wants to create another empire. He wants to rule through violence and through force, and that's what makes him a villain. And it's summed up right there in the line, and that's what makes it so brilliant. It's a little obvious, but it works.
No, and that's interesting. And what's interesting is I mean, like isn't there kind of an argument to be made that, you know, Eric is sort of a creation of, you know, I'm gonna get political here, but of an imperialism himself, because, you know, he talks about like being an Iraq war veteran, or they mention that he has been, so he has, you know, suffered from this kind of this interventionism, this kind of warmongering himself, and now maybe he's going in the same direction. I mean, it seems like that like complicates the whole thing, because on the one hand, it's like it's really horrible what he's going to do. On the other hand, you understand like how he got there, the circumstances that forge his perspective. You know,
Everett Ross refers to him as he's one of ours, and he's doing what we trained him to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's like that they're aware of that. Like that's part of what makes Ryan Coogler a great director, is that he thinks about this stuff. Like he's aware of the implications of it, you know? Like when we get to the end, when we get to all these fights and all the stuff that Killmonger is doing to the Wakandan loyalists, it's brutal, but they don't celebrate it. They don't, like, you don't relish it. It's just, this is the kind of guy he is. Now let's keep going with the action. Let's go marvel at the technology that they've got in play. It's not, let's celebrate and be really into how brutal and merciless he is.
Sure. No, that's a great point. Yeah. I mean, there's a real, like, terror when, you know, I mean, it's like, it's almost unthinkable when he becomes king. And, you know, because, I mean, usually action movies are pretty safe, and there's not that dramatic of an upheaval. And when that happens, it's like, you kind of go, or at least I went, like, whoa, this can happen? Like, this is, I mean, it makes it a better story, I think.
How are they going to get out of this one?
Join in next time. Going back to the morality, I think I really love that what this movie brings up is, what is the right option? Or what is right in this case? Not exactly what's moral. Like, I think it's so easy to be like, to have someone like Cap go, well, what's moral in this instance? Like, well, that's invasion of privacy, blah, blah, blah. Like, you look at it and you're right. You can see that, well, obviously Cap is going with the good option as opposed to Robert Redford, who is, like, crazy evil.
Yeah.
But in this instance, I think that early on they bring up the question of, what is right? It's like Wakanda has, again, coming back to this paradise, what is right? What do we do with T'Challa? Now that you're king, what do you do? What is right? And you have Daniel Kaluuya's character who has his idea on what's right. You have Denai Guerra, her idea on what is right, which is standing with Wakanda in all respects, all the time. Killmonger, which is we need to, conquer the world. And ultimately what T'Challa's father decided, what he decided what was right, and his choices that he made, which resulted in all these actions. And everybody has these ideas, and then you also have Lupita Nyong'o's what she thinks is right. And T'Challa has this moral conundrum of having to figure out within all this what he thinks is right as the leader of all these people, and ultimately make that final decision. And I like that his ultimate final decision is that we're all kind of right. And he makes an option that he thinks fits best all of us. He learns from Killmonger's life, and he also takes in what Lupita Nyong'o's character takes, but then also Denai Guerra goes through her own change of going, what is right is this. It doesn't sometimes means not standing with the king.
Side note, isn't it interesting that his lover and his enemy tell him the exact same thing?
Yes,
I mean
I think that is great.
Exact same thing.
No, but they both tell him, it's like you can't stand alone. You have to.
They both have the same idea, which is that what is happening here should not be just for here. It should be spread out.
And doesn't that kind of give credence to that idea when two people who are so different, kind of push him in that direction?
And I think that is actually the helpful part, because otherwise it's like, oh man, he met Killmonger and he through Killmonger figured out how to share. I think it's nice to have that other voice in his head that was we could do other good things. And I think that's great. And I think that was the great moral decision I liked, is that he ultimately decided, because it's not one person here is right. It's a lot of us all have to work together to figure out what the right answer is and do that.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a blend of of a few things.
Yeah.
So I like that morality, that at the core about what is right.
I like that too, and I'm about to say something nasty about X-Men again, which I feel bad about because I really am an X-Men geek.
I know, that shows growth, Ben. It shows that you can even a fanboy can notice what is wrong with their things that they love.
Oh yeah, but the thing is, any X-Men story. I mean, at least from what I've encountered either in the comics or the movies, I never saw necessarily a situation where Xavier would learn something from Magneto. It was always pretty oppositional. Maybe there was some cross pollination, but not that much. And I just think it's so interesting for T'Challa to say to his father, "Oh, Eric is a monster of our own making," and that's kind of a big deal, I think, because maybe it's not true, but I think what is powerful is the idea that T'Challa would take responsibility. Again, with great power comes great responsibility, and he takes on responsibility, and the idea, at the end that he sort of takes on responsibility for the wider world, and I think that's very powerful.
Well, it shows that T'Challa doesn't think of himself as just himself. He thinks of himself as his people.
Yeah.
And that is what he believes a leader should do. And I think, and so in knowing that he's also therefore responsible based on the decisions made before him by his own flesh and blood. It's not even like, oh, that guy, I don't know who had the job before me. It's like, oh, this is my dad. And that's that point that it doesn't just, it was like, well, that was that's the monster you're creating. He takes responsibility too. And ultimately, I think he's like, I have to do what's right for all of us, not just the one of us, as opposed to Eric, which is when you realize, you're like, yeah, he's just being an asshole. Well, a really vicious asshole.
Oh, so he doesn't respect women.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, that is true.
Oh, yeah, shit. That was harsh, man.
Which part you guys?
The part where he kills his own girlfriend to kill Eric.
Yeah.
It's like, or else the Bonnie and Clyde routine's over. He just shoots her and then shoots him. I was like, wait, Claw's dead? God damn it.
Yeah.
I was excited to see
That
Andy.
was my biggest criticism of the movie is that like I get you kind of have to include Claw because he is like the iconic Black Panther villain, or at least like the most notable Black Panther villain, and I get like bringing back Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis was a riot. He's so much fun.
Yeah, he's really good, yeah.
I miss seeing his actual face. He's a good actor. Well, I think he's actually a good actor now that he's done all the mocap.
I think he was always a good actor.
Well,
He was
if
good
you
at
watch
13 going on 30.
Well, see, this thing. If you watch 13 going on 30, it's not bad. I mean, he got the job. Obviously, he was better than everyone else. But then, like watching him take on this role, which again is a little absurd. But he's living it. And I was like, I feel like him having to live roles for so many years has actually made him go, even a role like supervillain missing an arm has to be real. And I feel like I was like, oh man, I miss seeing Andy Serkis like live, like just acting like a crazy human. And then I killed him. I was so mad.
But as a side note, I don't know how much voice acting like Andy Serkis has done, but he would kill if he did, man. He would do
yeah.
this thing.
He'll never have to. He's the motion capture king.
Yeah, but my main criticism is that when you look at Killmonger's plan, it kind of doesn't hold up. Like, why is he spending so much time with Claw? Why, if his point was just, we're going to kill him, and then we're going to take him back...
Why not kill him sooner?
Yeah, why...
Sure.
Why not just capture him for yourself?
Why do they steal the vibranium from the museum in London? Why do they go to South Korea to sell it to the CIA? Why does he bust him out of prison if he's just going to kill him and then take him back to Wakanda?
That is true.
He didn't use the vibranium later, right?
I don't believe
he was
so.
the
Okay.
vibranium was just to get a meeting with the CIA.
Yeah. Like, he was going to sell it to the CIA.
I mean, unless he was trying to drum up Killmonger's like presence to create a divide when he gets there with Daniel Kaluuya's character. But that's like that's like knowing way too much.
This is this is one of those long form plans like Zemo in Civil War that kind of doesn't hold up when you think of it.
Well, I mean, it's like, it's an interesting thing, because on the one hand, like narratively, it's sort of the classic thing, like, oh, you have someone you think is the villain, the true villain, like, kind of emerges later on, and that light, it makes sense, but, I mean, the kind of the shaky narrative bedrock you point out, Mo, I mean, that's, I think that, you know...
Structurally, I understand, like, why you need to have a first act in a movie, but also...
But yeah, as you said, it doesn't really make sense, and you said in your review that maybe, like, Claw was like a studio note that went too far, and then, like, I mean, and that made me think, it got me thinking, like, you know, well, yeah, they set him up in Age of Ultron, and did Ryan Coogler, like, kind of look at it, it's like, no, I'm not interested in this character, I have to use him now, but it's like, I have this other character who I think is a better adversary, you know.
Or maybe Andy Serkis wanted to get out of his contract and do something else.
That's
maybe
true, yeah.
maybe the only reason they could get Andy Serkis is they're like, we'll kill you off in your next role. Fine, thank you. I have things to go pretend to be.
I have to direct another Jungle Book movie.
Right, that nobody asked for.
Oh, is he doing
Sorry,
a Jungle Book
Andy.
too?
Yeah, he's directing...
Mowgli. It's called
Mowgli to differentiate from the Disney's Jungle Book, and he's gonna also play Baloo. Which, it's a good cast.
I mean, so far all you told me is Andy Serkis.
It's him, Christian Bale as Bagheera,
Right.
Benedict Cumberbatch as Shere Khan.
Yeah.
I think Kate Blanchett as Kaa.
Yeah.
Wait, they didn't even... Oh my gosh, they even cast a woman as the snake again?
Yeah.
Okay, no. Boo. Passing. Let's talk about a good movie. I can already tell you this movie's bad.
Well, with the claw thing, I mean, isn't it also an issue of, like, I mean, I don't know, I mean, maybe you guys can speak to this. I mean, just based on the movie, Claw doesn't seem like that interesting a character to me, even if he is the most famous Black Panther villain, you know?
He's sort of this... for me, he worked not just because he's funny, but he's this walking idea of colonialism.
Yeah.
Of someone who saw these Marvel, like, not just colonialism, but, like, straight up racism. Just the fact that he saw Wakanda, he saw, like, these marvels that they had created, all this amazing technology, and his first instinct was, your savages don't deserve this. And that he thought it was free for him to take. Like, that's who he is. He is colonialism personified.
Sure.
He's a piece of shit.
And the fact that he's actually like South African, that's kind of a change from the comics. In the comics, he was just Dutch. Like he had family who were like Nazi sympathizers, but he himself was just a guy from Denmark, right? No,
Denmark.
Wherever.
Or wait, or the Netherlands?
Yeah.
Netherlands.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about European
White
countries,
people?
man. But yeah, in the comics he was just Dutch, and that was it. And here, the fact that he's actually from South Africa it's an interesting trait, and it also lets him talk in an Afrikaner's accent, which is interesting to listen to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I mean, if they were to bring him back to life, and let's face it, they can bring anyone back to life.
Everyone keeps saying that based solely on comics, but so far,
not based solely on comics. Based on the fact that like Nick Fury has come back to life 5 times,
yeah.
Bucky coming back to life.
Yeah, but I guess Nick Fury came back in the same movie, which I was like, I gave that.
He just faked his death.
He fakes his death in the movie. Winter Soldier. I mean,
with Claw, the real question is who would go through the trouble of bringing him back to life.
It's
That's a good
we
question.
need more Claw. We need more racist assholes in our gang of villains.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess I don't know. I guess I'm just waiting for someone to be like, literally, like, here's the dead body and spell back to life. Like,
just as long as they don't do it like
I guess
the
Phil
CPR scene in Justice League.
Yeah.
I mean, no magic shadow boxes or
no magic
whatever.
goo bath.
No magic goo bath.
All right.
Do you guys have any more thoughts on Black Panther before we sign off?
It's dope as fuck. Go see it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Second that.
Go see it a second time. Actually, it's good twice.
All right, who's favorite character?
Denai Guerrera. But I've always loved her. And I just love her character because it actually reminded me exactly of a Final Fantasy IX character. And I was like, wait a second. And I was like, but that's me. And so I was like, Michonne, Final Fantasy IX, badass woman. What's not to love here?
I feel weird saying favorite about this character. But to me, Eric Killmonger was the character I was the most interested in, partly because of Michael B. Jordan, and I mean, again, that line where he talks, he says, at least they knew that death was better than bondage. Like, I mean, just some of those scenes, like he takes it to like a Shakespearean level. That was pretty wild.
It's like every time I think, but then I was like, Shuri, because I was literally watching that scene, and I was like, I leaned over to my friend, like, it's cute. And they go, what? I go, it's cute, like, from the Bond movies. And I'm like, she is cute. But she's like, she looks like she's 12.
Mo, favorite character?
For me, it was M'Baku.
It's great.
Like, just because he's so much of a subversion of your expectations. Like, the character he's based off, they made...
I forgot to mention that.
They made a lot of changes, which they should have.
Again, taking that care.
Taking that care, because as in the comics, he's a straight up villain. He still has that gorilla motif, but now like he wears like this gorilla skin as his costume, and he calls himself the Man Ape, which is not something you can really get away with.
No.
So he shows up in the movie, and you think he's just this big bad guy, and Winston Duke plays him as just this heavy really well. And then we meet him later, and he's like, no, he's funny, and he's like legit honorable, and he's a good guy. He just has these different beliefs, and it works so well, and he plays him so well. And I want to see more of him. I want to see more of that actor.
M'Baku's actually going to be in Infinity War.
Yeah, I think like everyone in Wakanda is going to be there. It's going to be like a big set piece.
That's awesome.
I recently read like the list. I was a little sad that Shuri wasn't going to be in it.
She's not?
No, but Denai Guerrera, Lupita Nyong'o, I think.
Yeah.
And then M'Baku.
I just have to add, I mean, another great line was I'm just kidding. We're vegetarians. I mean, you were talking about humor and the way they use humor. I mean, Exhibit A right there. That was so just perfectly
Like when everyone's talking, it just goes, "Are you done? Are you done?
Are you done?" It's a great movie.
It's so good.
Yeah, go see it. It's fantastic.
You probably already have. See it again.
Yeah. Go see the things that we just talked about. Be like, oh, wow, they're right.
My regret is that I live in Portland, and I saw it in a downtown theater, and it's mostly white people who are not gonna like have big reactions to stuff. So like I don't know, maybe it might be worth it to fly like Atlanta or
I was gonna say take a trip to Atlanta,
or Harlem or Oakland or wherever, and just watch it with a room full of brothers.
Just go to LA.
Maybe that too.
Yeah.
Go to Compton. See it there.
Yeah, it was actually really nice. Just not just African Americans, but just any people of color were like very excited for this movie too. I think it's almost like hope.
Yeah.
And that was great.
I posted about this like a while ago on Facebook, and I'm sure I've talked about this on the podcast already, but I think it was with you. We were seeing Shape of Water.
A white person movie?
Yeah.
Yes. We were just discussing how that's the white person Oscar nominee for this year.
Yeah, well, that and 3 Billboards.
That's true. That's the real white person one, and then the Shape of Water is the fancy white person one. It's like it's a fairy tale. It's a romance.
About Big and the Fish Man.
It's about fish sex. Like it seems magical, but the other one's like it's white, but it's real.
Yeah. But I saw a lineup of posters, and it was 5 movie posters, and it was like
Proud Mary.
It was Proud Mary, Phantom Thread, Black Panther.
Wasn't it Wrinkle in Time?
No, it was something else, and then it was Pacific Rim Uprising.
Oh yes.
And it was, and 3 of those movies starred black people, and that was kind of incredible to me. That it was like this is not a niche genre anymore. Like movies about black people are not niche stories; they're for everyone. Mm-hmm. And coming like when I was growing up, we had Static Shock as one of the Saturday morning cartoons.
I love Static Shock.
And it was a black superhero. And then eventually it got canceled because kids shows live and die by merchandise sales. And the merchandising arm was like, oh no, that like a black superhero show, that's a niche genre show. We can't market that to everyone. It was pulling numbers. It was like the second most watched show on that block. And it got canceled because they thought that, black kids were a niche audience. And that's changed. And that makes me hopeful for the future, honestly. That we will get more diverse media and more interesting stories, and that's kind of amazing to me.
Yeah,
I think that's a great note to wrap it up on.
All right.
Agreed.
Agreed. If you like this podcast, please click thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at T.H.O Movie Reviews, and check out all the great reviews and content, including Mo's review of Black Panther at T.H.O Movie Reviews.
It's wonderful. I love it.
At THOmoviерeviews.wordpress.com. Once again, I'm your host, Bennett Campbell Ferguson, here with Mo Shaunette, here with Maxwell Meyers, and from all of us here at T.H.O Movie Reviews, happy movie watching.
Wakanda forever.
Yeah.